The text was waiting when I woke up. You're not as alone as you think. No name, no context, just those words glowing on my phone screen. I was in a rented cabin in the Smoky Mountains, miles from anywhere, with 3 friends for spring break. It was supposed to be our escape from college stress. Instead, it was the start of something I still can't fully explain. My name's Claire, and I'm a junior at a small liberal arts college in Ohio. My friends, Jasper, Mia, and Ethan, and I had been planning this trip since January. We wanted something low-key, away from the crowded beaches and overpriced clubs. A cabin in Tennessee seemed perfect. Cheap, secluded, surrounded by pine trees and fog that rolled off the mountains like a slow breath. We'd hike, cook over a fire, maybe drink a little. Simple. We arrived late on a Thursday, the gravel road to the cabin barely visible in the dark. The place was cozy enough. Wooden walls, a stone fireplace, a creaky porch with a swing. The only downside was the spotty cell service. Texts came through in bursts, if at all, and calls dropped after a few seconds. We didn't mind. It felt like a real getaway. That first night, we unpacked, cracked open some beers, and played cards by the fire. Jasper, who's studying film, kept joking about how the cabin was straight out of a horror movie. Mia rolled her eyes, but Ethan leaned into it, making up stories about a ghost who haunted the woods. I laughed along, but something about the silence outside, the way it swallowed every sound, made my skin prickle. I went to bed early, exhausted from the drive. My room was upstairs, a small space with a slanted ceiling and a window that overlooked the forest. I fell asleep to the sound of wind rustling through the trees. When I woke up the next morning, my phone was on the nightstand, and that text was staring at me. You're not as alone as you think. I checked the number. Unknown, no area code I recognized. I figured it was a prank, maybe Jasper messing with me. I showed it to the group over breakfast. Jasper swore it wasn't him, and Mia suggested it was a wrong number. Ethan, still in horror movie mode, said it was probably the ghost of the Smokies. We laughed it off, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, somewhere, was watching. We decided to hike that day, following a trail that looped around a nearby ridge. The forest was stunning. Moss-covered rocks, streams that glittered in the sunlight, air so clean it almost hurt to breathe. We took photos, skipped stones, and forgot about the weird text. By the time we got back to the cabin, we were sweaty and starving. Mia and I started dinner, while Jasper and Ethan chopped firewood. That's when I noticed the boot print. It was on the porch, near the swing, a smear of mud shaped like the sole of a hiking boot. It hadn't been there that morning. I called the others over. Jasper pointed out that none of us had boots like that. We were all wearing sneakers. Ethan, trying to stay calm, suggested it was the Airbnb host checking on the property. But the cabin was miles from the nearest neighbor, and we hadn't heard a car. Mia's face went pale. What if someone's been here? She whispered. We searched the cabin, checking every room, every closet. Nothing was missing, nothing out of place. Still, we locked the doors and windows, even though it felt pointless in a place so remote. That night, we stayed up late, jumping at every creak of the floorboards. I kept my phone close, but no more texts came. The next morning, we tried to move on. We drove to a nearby town for supplies, hoping a change of scenery would help. The town was small, just a gas station, a diner, and a general store. While we were at the store, I noticed a man watching us from across the street. He was tall, wearing a flannel jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. When I looked at him, he turned and walked away. I didn't say anything to the others, not wanting to sound paranoid. Back at the cabin, We grilled burgers and played music to drown out the quiet. But around dusk, my phone buzzed again. Another text from the same unknown number. "Nice fire. Smells good." My stomach dropped. I showed the others, and this time, no one laughed. The fire pit was in the backyard, surrounded by trees. Whoever sent that text could see us. Ethan grabbed a flashlight and scanned the woods, but the beam barely cut through the darkness. Jasper suggested we call the police, but with no cell service, we'd have to drive back to town. Mia was shaking, saying we should pack up and leave. I wanted to agree, but something stubborn in me refused. We'd paid for the cabin. We weren't doing anything wrong. Why should we let some creep ruin our trip? Instead, we put out the fire, locked ourselves inside, and took turns keeping watch. I couldn't sleep. Every rustle outside sounded like footsteps. Around 2 a.m., Jasper, who was on watch, hissed for us to come downstairs. He pointed to the living room window. The blinds were down, but through a small gap, we saw a shadow move. It was quick, just a flicker, but it was there. Someone was outside. Ethan wanted to confront whoever it was, but Mia begged him not to. "What if they have a gun?" she said. We stayed quiet, hearts pounding, until the shadow didn't reappear. Eventually, we convinced ourselves it was an animal, a deer maybe, but none of us believed it. The next day, we were on edge. We decided to stick together, no one going anywhere alone. We hiked a different trail, shorter this time, and kept our eyes peeled for anything strange. About halfway through, we found something that made my blood run cold. A small pile of stones arranged in a perfect circle, right in the middle of the path. It wasn't there the day before. Jasper kicked it apart, muttering about weird mountain people, but I could tell he was rattled. When we got back to the cabin, there was a new boot print on the porch in the same spot as before. This time, it was fresh, the mud still wet. Ethan lost it, yelling into the trees, "Show yourself, coward!" No one answered. Mia started packing her bag, saying she was done. I didn't argue, but Jasper and Ethan wanted to stay one more night, to not let the bastard win. I sided with them, mostly because I was too stubborn to admit I was scared. That night, we set up a plan. We'd leave the lights on, make it look like we were awake, and take shifts watching the doors. I took the first shift, sitting in the dark kitchen with a knife from the drawer. The house was silent, except for the hum of the fridge. Then, around midnight, my phone lit up. Another text. "Check the porch." I froze. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I crept to the front door, peering through the peephole. There on the porch swing was a single pine cone, placed perfectly in the center of the seat. It hadn't been there when we locked up. I woke the others, and we stared at the pine cone like it was a bomb. Ethan wanted to grab it, but Jasper stopped him. "It's bait," he said. "They want us to go outside." We didn't sleep. At dawn, we packed our bags and loaded the car. The pine cone was still on the swing, untouched. As we drove away, I kept checking the rear-view mirror, half expecting to see someone standing in the road. No one was there. We stopped at the diner in town to call the police. The officer who took our statement was polite but skeptical. "Kids pull pranks out here sometimes," he said. "Or it could have been a hunter messing with you." He promised to check on the cabin, but didn't seem too concerned. We gave him the number that sent the texts, but I doubted he'd follow up. The drive home was quiet. We were all shaken, trying to make sense of what happened. Mia thought it was a local, someone who didn't like outsiders. Jasper was convinced it was a serial killer, playing with us before making a move. Ethan didn't say much, just kept checking his phone. A week later, I got a call from the Airbnb host. She said the police had found something at the cabin, a small camera hidden in a tree near the fire pit. It was wireless, transmitting to a device they couldn't trace. The host was apologetic, offering a refund, but her voice shook as she talked. "We've never had anything like this happen," she said. "I haven't told my friends about the camera. I don't know how to bring it up without freaking them out. Sometimes I wonder if the person who placed it is still watching, waiting for us to come back. I deleted the texts, but I can't forget them. You're not as alone as you think. Maybe we never were." The worst part? Last night, I got a new text from a different number. Just one word: "Missed you." I don't go hiking anymore. I don't trust the quiet, and I'll never rent a cabin again.